welcome to Lunchtime Politics. First, the highlights. Nigerian workers across the country mark Workers' Day amid economic challenges. And more stranded students in Sudan evacuated from the country's capital, Khartoum, while others still at the border to Egypt days after arrival. Plus, Arewa Group asked APC to zone House of Representatives Speaker to the North West and President of Senate to the Southeast. And welcome to the program. I'm Millicent Walker in Lagos. Happy Workers' Day, even though some of us are still working. However, it is yet another opportunity to reflect on the heroic roles which the Nigerian workforce operating under different unions have played in Nigeria's independence struggle and the sustenance of that freedom since October 1, 1960. It's International Workers' Day, and Nigerian workers are joining workers from other countries to mark the day. May Day, first celebrated in 1890 and has been celebrated yearly since then. In Nigeria, the day affords workers' unions to make demands on their employers. To mark this year's celebrations, Organized Labour and their affiliates were to use the streets of Abuja for the rally after the federal government had withdrawn approval for the use of the Eagle Square, Abuja, the usual parade ground. However, we understand that the federal government approved the use of the Eagle Square for the annual May Day parade, the last Workers' Day commemoration in the life of the Muhammadu Buhari administration. And talking about activities for the day, in Lagos, workers representing various civil service trade unions in the state converged on Victoria Island to mark the May Day celebrations. The Lagos State Governor, members of the State Executive Council are expected at the gathering to be marked with a match past, goodwill messages, and an opportunity for workers to reflect on issues relating to workers' welfare in the state. Over in Adamawa State, workers are also marking the day at the Mahmoud Rabadu Square in Yola, the state capital, with the march past currently on in the capital. And present are workers drawn from the Nigerian Labour Congress, the Trade Union Congress, civil service, private sector, and other voluntary organizations. The governor of Adamawa State, Umar Fintiri, is represented by his chief of staff, Professor Maxwell Gedado, who is seen taking the salute of the workers.
Your Excellency, by their uniform, you shall know them because they are the Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations. After Strasbourg, we are having Senior Staff Association of Statutory Corporations and Government Companies.
We are 40 powers, gain our freedom when we learn. Hallelujah makes us strong. Solidarity, solidarity. Forever, solidarity.
And that is Edo State, South Nigeria, where the governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, his deputy, Mr. Philip Shrimbo, today joined workers to commemorate the Workers' Day. The workers are converging on the Samuel Ogwemudia Stadium in Benin City, the state capital.
They all deserve a round of applause. A great team and a wonderful team have delivered dividends of democracy. We are now leaving out the chief of staff And of course,
we'll have more of the activities of the day a little later on. But the president of the Trade Union Congress, Comrade Festus Osifo, has called on the federal government to review the 5-year minimum wage increment plan. Speaking on our Sunrise Daily program, Comrade Osifo says inflation has reduced the purchasing power of the average Nigerian, and it will be in the best interest of citizens for the government to implement more frequent increments in the minimum wage to make life easier. He also spoke on the need to abolish casualization of the workforce, saying it leads to exploitation of workers.
We are in a real crisis. Today, the purchasing power of the average Nigerian workers has depleted. So that is why we have been clamoring that the 5 years that you put in there, because the spate of inflation is quite high. You are having average of 20% inflation on an annual basis for a salary that is not increasing. Okay. So when you put that, you see that the money has literally eroded. So what we are advocating, like as it's done in every other industry in Nigeria, we do have a 2 years CBA negotiations, but in between 2 years, you have opportunity to look at salary adjustment. So this should be done more frequently than the 5 years that we have today. On the part of TUC, we have continuously advocated that the issue of casualization should be abolished. Yes, in other parts of the world, you have what they call outsourcing. But the way outsourcing is done in other climes is quite different from the way outsourcing is done in Nigeria. In fact, in some countries, people do not want to be regular staff. They prefer to cater for themselves all around. And what they earn when those jobs are sourced in other parts of the world is even much more than what the regular staff earn. Because when you pay them, you don't need to bother about hospitals, you don't need to bother about their gratuity, you pay them everything at the end of the month. They earn ×2 when compared to what regular staff are earning. So some people does not want to be regular staff. They prefer to be the outsourced staff. But here in Nigeria, the reverse is the case. Because those casual staffs, those outsourced staff, they earn abysmally. And it's something that all stakeholders must come together to address.
Let's talk more today about the workers' welfare and the economy as is. Joining me is Mr. Muda Yusuf, Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, CPPE. He joins me virtually. Thank you, Mr. Yusuf. Welcome to the program and happy Workers' Day.
Thank you, Millicent. Happy Workers' Day to you, even though you're at work.
Thank you. How would you describe Nigeria's economy when you hear labor unions say that it's been a harsh economy under the President Buhari administration?
Yes, I agree with the position of the TUC president, which you just relayed. The situation is extremely bad. And just as he said, I think the biggest issue has to do with inflation. Because the rate of inflation has massively eroded purchasing power. And this issue is much more serious for those who are fixed income earners. We are seeing situations over a year or 2 years where the purchasing power or the value of their income has been eroded by close to 50%. So this, for me, is a major issue that needs to be dealt with. And the solution is not so much about regularly increasing salaries. I think it is more about better macroeconomic management. There was a time in this country, we are talking of between the early 80s, mid-80s to late 80s, where people were buying brand new cars for 10,000 naira, for 15,000 naira, brand new cars. I'm not talking about several centuries ago. Today, brand new cars, we are talking about 15 million to 20 million of that same category of vehicle. So what has happened to our currency? In the mid-80s, a bag of rice was 35 naira, 40 naira. Today it is 50 naira, 50,000 naira. So you can imagine the kind of devastation that inflation had done to the income of workers. And not just only workers. Even people who are doing some small businesses who are not able to earn or raise their income in a way that is commensurate to the rate of inflation. So if there is anything that has been deepening poverty in this economy today, it is inflation. And it's a combination of factors. Some of these factors are driven by cost of production. Some of them are driven by the way we manage the economy, by the high level of deficit, by the monetization of deficit by the central bank. So these are some of the fundamental issues. I mean, somebody's on level 10, for instance, in the civil service, currently earns maybe around 200,000 naira per month, assuming the person is based in Abuja, and there are many of them like that in Abuja. You have a family of maybe 4, you have to pay school fees, you have to pay rent, you have to pay for transportation. How will the person cope? So sometimes we even talk about corruption in the civil service and things like that. We need to put it in the context of all of these challenges. This is not to justify corruption, but we need to, be realistic in the kind of wages that that workers earn.
And to think that only last year, the federal government said it would leave no stone unturned in ensuring improved welfare for all workers. But, this is another May Day celebration. There have been some economic challenges, haven't there? Some economic realities that also, the federal government has probably had to grapple with. But if you look at the last 1 year, as we celebrate another day today, and also even for the governors, is there a way that they could have prevented things the way they are now for workers?
Well, one of the ways, just as I said, is to manage the macroeconomic environment better. The second is to, restructure the way they spend, because that's still a big issue around corruption, around the quality of spending. I think that, for me, is also very critical. The other is to look at the way we manage some subsidies. Yes, Labour always, work against removal of subsidy and all of that. But if we had a situation where we had more money allocated to the states and the federal to be able to take care of workers through the removal of subsidy, that may improve their lot. But now that we are prioritizing subsidy, particularly subsidy that is not even directly benefiting significantly these workers that we are talking about, we have now prioritized it within the scheme of our expenditure. It's a major problem even for the workers. Because the basic thing that government is supposed to provide, apart from paying them well, things like public schools, which are much cheaper than private schools, things like public hospitals. Government needs money to do all of these things. But if you now spend all the money, on subsidy and some things like that, then you have a very big issue. So we also need to have our priorities right, even with advocacy by Labour itself, so that government spending is targeted as something that can improve the welfare of workers. Things like public transportation, bringing down the cost of food, making healthcare accessible, improving the quality of public education. These are very fundamental things. And it's also important, the TUC president referenced it, issue of casualization and the protection of the rights of workers. How do we explain a situation where a bank that is declaring billions of naira, sometimes hundreds of billions of naira, as profit, has in its workforce a long list of people who are casual workers? They call them contract staff or outsourced staff. Some of them are earning less than 100,000. And they report at work at 8 o'clock. They close sometimes at 6, at 7 o'clock. I've seen one of them who worked for almost 10 years. He was disengaged without any entitlement at all. That is criminal. So within the context of even ensuring that labor or workers are not exploited, because some people are taking advantage of the high unemployment rate because there are no jobs. So we need to protect the interests of these people. The banking industry have no business outsourcing and casualizing staff. And with due respect, even in the media, I know what some media staff are going through. Some of them have been on freelance for almost 7 to 8 years. No permanent employment, no condition of service, nothing. So we need to protect all this category of workers. So the Labour Ministry also needs to be up and doing, to protect workers, to protect their rights. so that people don't take advantage of the fact that there are no jobs to be exploiting people. It's very important.
And indeed, I guess we can also say that there is a link between Nigerian workers' improved welfare and economic growth.
Of course, there's a relationship. If there is improved welfare, for instance, productivity will increase. If productivity increases, the economy will grow.
Indeed.
And vice versa, if the economy is growing, the welfare of the workers will also improve. So it's both ways. But
I'd like to thank
getting
you.
the economy to grow is a question of how well you manage the economy itself.
Quite right. We always appreciate your time on the program. Many thanks. Mr. Mudo Yusuf is the Chief Executive Officer, Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Thank you as we mark today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Millicent.
Welcome back. A northern-based group, Arewa Concerned Citizens, has asked the leadership of the All Progressives Congress to microzone the position of the Speaker of the House of Representatives to Zamfara State in the Northwest Zone. The group is also asking the party to zone the Senate presidency to either South-South or South-East zones in the interest of equity, fairness and justice.
The president has emerged from the southwest in the person of Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and the vice president emerged from the northeast in the person of Shetima. We are expecting the Senate president to come from the south or southeast. In the same vein, we are expecting the Speaker House of Representatives to come from the northwest. That is our concern, in order to have equal representation among the various or 6 political zones in the country. While the Speaker House of Representatives will emerge from the northwest. In view of the above, we are calling on the President-elect and the leadership of the APC in general to support the candidature of one of the representative from the northwest in the person of Alhaji Aminu Sani Jaji from Zamfara. So for equal representation, justice and fair play, we are calling on the leadership of the APC and the president-elect in particular to support the candidature of Aminu Sani Jaji, Honorable Aminu Sani Jaji.
And elsewhere, the new President General of Ohaneze Ndigbo, Chief Emmanuel Iwayenwu, has assured residents of the southeast of his commitment to work with everyone to develop the region. Chief Iwayenwu was speaking during the oath-taking ceremony which preceded his takeover of office as new leader of the Igbo socio-cultural group. He promised to expedite efforts towards the creation of new states and work towards the development of all sectors of the economy in the southeast region. Present at the meeting were the Enugu State Governor of Anambra State as well, Deputy Governor of Imo, Ebonyi and Abia States, as well as members of the National and State Houses of Assembly. We also had former governors, among others, in attendance.
And prosperity of the objectives
And now to the situation in Sudan. The National Association of Nigerian Students in Sudan says all stranded students in the war-racked North African country have been evacuated from the country's capital, Khartoum. The public relations officer of the association made this known in a statement on Sunday, where he said the remaining students have been evacuated Sunday, 30th April. It also said there were a total of 26 buses, and each bus contained about 50 people. They continue to ask for prayers and hope that all students are able to reach Nigeria safely. In the meantime, a down payment of $400,000 to the bus companies in Sudan for 40 buses at $30,000 each for the evacuation of Nigerians stranded in the country, but only 13 buses were provided. However, delays by the central bank system caused a delay in payments, which necessitated threats of non-movement. Well, this according to the permanent secretary of the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry, Ministry, Nasser Sani Gwazo, who at a press conference yesterday was responding to questions on accountability for the funding for the evacuation of Nigerians stranded in Sudan. Now, it appears that hundreds of Nigerians who were evacuated from Khartoum, the capital, were to be airlifted from Egypt back to Nigeria, are still stranded as they've not been allowed to cross the border into Egypt since their arrival Thursday last week. There are concerns as to their conditions. We've heard from some of the students and families stuck along the borders of Sudan who have complained about the very harsh conditions. Well, joining me now is Sani Aliyu. He's a freelance journalist in Sudan. He joins me for more. Hi, Mo. Thanks for talking to us. Give us an idea of how the city of Khartoum is at the moment and things in general.
Thank you for having me. Actually, I am not inside the city of Khartoum right now. I'm a few kilometers outside the city. But before I left, and the situation has been the same over the past couple of days. Number one, there is still fighting going on in the streets in central Khartoum, near the University of Africa, International University of Africa, and the international airport, which is still under contention. Nobody knows who is in charge of the airport. Life is very difficult. There is no food. No markets are open. All the shops either have been looted or are shut down. Electricity supply is erratic. All the good things of life that people have taken for granted are no more available. This is the situation right now. People are desperate.
And you know, still talking about that, you said you're just a few miles away. Even where you are as well, the other parts of Sudan, what's going on there and how do people feel about this situation?
Well, there are actually two flashpoints right now in Sudan. The city itself, the capital city, that is Khartoum, and in the southwest, the southwestern part of corner of Sudan, that is Darfur. There has been ongoing fighting over the last 1 week between the government forces, that is the Sudan Armed Forces, and the paramilitary, men of the paramilitary, that is the Rescue Support Forces, the RSF. They have been fighting for control of that corner of Sudan because it's a very important gateway into Sudan from West and Central Africa. And that fighting has forced more than 20,000 people to flee into neighboring Chad. This is the situation there. People are actually living their lives to a large extent the way they used to in other parts of Sudan, in Central Sudan, in the east. That is why the evacuation effort has paid more attention to taking the Nigerian students towards the eastern border or to the Red Sea port of Port Sudan. Right now, there are two groups of students at the Egyptian border to the north who, as you said in your report, have been stranded there over the past 5 days due to inability to settle some of the charges the Egyptians have levied on the students who are in two different crossing points. So this is the situation actually right now.
And for the Port of Sudan, how successful will they be? Because there are also fears as to how they will cross from there. And talking about the Nigerian students, the evacuations that are going on along that route.
Well, at the Port of Sudan, there is an arrangement which has been going on, but I don't know if it will work for Nigeria. All the students who arrive at Port Sudan will actually be put onto ships, and these ships will cross the Red Sea and take them to to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, which is just 200 nautical miles across from Sudan. And then the Nigerian government will have to make arrangements to fly them home from Jeddah. Now, there is another location, which is the Ethiopian border, which is actually much better. It's been working now. I don't know why we're not taking advantage of that, because that one, you cross into Ethiopia, you go to Addis Ababa, and you fly our boys straight home. But this is the situation right now. Port Sudan has an airport, but only military aircraft fly in and out. civilian aircraft are not allowed to land. And the Sudanese government, that is the military government right now, has issued a decree moving the capital temporarily to Port Sudan. The capital of Sudan is to Port Sudan, which is in its control right now.
So I guess lots still to be expected as we hope for the safe return of all citizens leaving Khartoum and other parts to their destination countries. We appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Mosani Aliyu is a freelance journalist joining us from the country. Thanks again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about more stories that are coming in across the state. And the President of Senate, Ahmed Lawan, has hailed Nigerian workers for their patriotism, commitment to nation building and resilience as they join their counterparts around the world to mark the 2023 Workers' Day on May the 1st. In a statement, Senator Lawan said the workers have contributed in finding solutions to challenges and supported the efforts of government targeted at meeting the yearnings of the populace. According to him, this consistent patriotic stance of the Nigerian workers has enhanced peace and industrial harmony and provided a conducive environment for economic growth and development in the country. Meanwhile, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association and senior advocate of Nigeria, Yakubu Maikiao, has called on the incoming administrations at the federal and state government levels to initiate, reinvigorate, and focus on policies that promote inclusiveness, protect MSMEs, grow the middle class, and prioritize infrastructural development. He made the call on the occasion of the Workers' Day, a message to Nigerians. The NBA president believes that now more than ever before, deliberate steps must be taken to safeguard the socio-economic rights of workers. And for some of the governors today, the outgoing governor of Niger State, Mr. Abubakar Bello, is among those felicitating with the workers. In a statement signed by his spokesperson, Mr. Bello, he laments the huge wage bill of the state, which has remained static, as well as the lingering anomalies in the civil service over the years. For his counterparts in Benue State, Mr. Samuel Otom, he commended the workers for their unalloyed support and resilience over the years. He commends them for being inundated and faithful in spite of the harsh economic environment in the country. Well, we wrap up with the highlights at the Eagle Square, Abuja, the commemoration of the 2023 May Day celebration. Attending the event, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Mohammed Bello, we understand the Minister of Women Affairs, Mrs. Pauline Talon, is there as well. Presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election, Mr. Peter Obi, is also in attendance. We have past, present leaders of the Nigeria Labour Congress and Trade Union Congress, as well as those of other affiliate unions present there. This year's Workers' Day celebration has the theme Workers' Rights and Socio-Economic Justice. It's the celebration to be held under President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Well, you've been served lunch this day. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day and happy Workers' Day.